Hey, it's Dr. Tracy. Thanks for clicking play and joining us here today. I am sitting with my husband, Greg, and today we're talking all about resentment.
Yeah, it's something that's been coming up quite a bit in our community, well, in your community, and I think just in life. I think it's something normal, but we often don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, that is kind of one of the things we like to do here is talk about some of those hard conversations that I know so many couples are having, but are often not bringing them forward or feeling a lot of shame around it. And resentment is actually one of those things that a lot of people feel, but just have a lot of mixed feelings about the feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of this through line that I think when we're kind of like looking at feedback you get, or even from feedback in the membership community, like it's not often like explicit, but it just feels like it's just this like undercurrent that's just always there, and almost in whatever specific topic you're talking about, it's like there's this simmering of it, or just
Mm.
like sprinkled into comments. And maybe I'm reading too much into it from a guy's perspective, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it can easily be what covers up a lot of stuff, whether it's feelings of aloneness, whether it's envy or sadness or anxiety. I think resentment tends to be this feeling that stirs up, and we just don't know what to do with it because it feels like a red flag.
All right. Well, tell me more about that. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, as you're saying that, like, aren't those things contributing to resentment, or is resentment covering up something, as you say?
Yeah, great question. Resentment is like the top of an iceberg. So it's the
Mm.
tip of the iceberg. We only see this small little piece around what's going on. When actually, when you go beneath the surface, all of these emotions are showing up underneath. There's a bigger experience that if we're curious to this feeling, we can then start to understand what's happening, what am I feeling, what's this signaling to me, and what do I need? And I think that's really the piece that people miss is it's like, oh, I had this feeling and now I'm going to get rid of it. But one of the reasons why we want to talk about this today was because of this viral reel we had. And I think it really demonstrated what resentment is and also just how misunderstood it is.
Yeah, I
And
think the latter part, a
yeah.
big thing.
And maybe instead of describing the reel, why don't you describe the actual situation that happened?
Well, it was kind of a remake of something that happened to us,
That's happened many times.
between us. It didn't seem like a big deal. And I think that's part of why we're talking about
Mhm.
it. It's me just literally setting my coffee cup on the counter. Maybe it was in a way that was just kind of quick and like not really thoughtful. Not that it needs to be thoughtful, but I don't know. And just your reaction to it was like, in that moment, like I knew,
Well,
I
you
could
knew.
feel it.
You didn't even have to have words come from my mouth. You
I think the
knew.
idea was it was symbolic of some other stuff that was going on. And so when we kind of like recreated this for the reel, it triggered a lot of dialogue, some good, some interesting feedback.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not about the mug. And so many people commented on this reel saying it's just a mug. He's going to come back and have more. He's maybe not done with it. He uses the mug all week long, the same mug. And the reel, for those who didn't see it, it's me cleaning the kitchen in quite some depth. And then the kitchen's clean, I walk away. And it's not just that I put the dishes away. I was cleaning the front of the cabinets and things like that. Then I walk away, and then in walks you, and then you just put the mug there, walk away, and then you zoom in. And one person's comment was, I knew what was going to happen even before he walked into the scene. And I just thought
That was amazing.
the mug is such a human experience, whether it's the coffee mug, the plate, the towel that's left on the floor.
It's just something so mundane. I think it's the symbolism of it in
Right.
that situation.
It's not about the mug. It's about the repeated micro moments where one person doesn't feel seen and considered. And it's just this buildup.
Yeah. And I think there's always context and nuance to everyone's specific situation. But I think on some level, everyone can kind of relate to like maybe not being in the best space. And it's this idea of like just this small thing that just happens over and over again, maybe not in the exact same way, that kind of like really lends itself to this feeling of resentment that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So maybe even pausing to talk about what is resentment. And it's often this experience of things that have not been spoken, of a buildup of micro moments. There's all of these feelings and needs that are not talked about. And the way I understand resentment as showing up is that you have unmet needs, whether you have not been expressing them, because to be able to express a need and a feeling is quite a hard thing to do,
It's a skill.
or because you have expressed it, but your partner continues to not meet it or not even be able to. And the example of the coffee mug is I am sharing with you that I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm doing all these things, and I'm not seen because then, I mean, and it's not about having a perfectly clean kitchen. I think that's
No.
what so many people were missing about the reel, is that this wasn't to have this obsessively clean space, a perfect space. These aren't
Not at
high
all.
expectations. And as the more critical partner in our dynamic, I've had to address my desires in the kitchen. I remember our early days, I just loved having everything off the counter. And you throw in one child and another child and two busy work schedules, and it just wasn't possible. And so I had to check my expectations, which is part of the resentment dynamic. But that other piece around it was really about, am I seen in this?
No. And then I think the other piece you were talking to me about too is like, are you seen? And then like, how does the mental load, the emotional labor contribute to it?
This is a common thing that I hear from people, is around just how hard it is to get their partner to understand the mental load and what it means to have 1,000 things on your to-do list. And yes, maybe you got to go to yoga and maybe you got that extra time to do the puzzle with the kids on the floor, but the experience is really about how much weight I'm carrying every single day. And for the person who says, I'm thinking of this woman I worked with recently, and she was saying how it's like when I say to my husband that I'm overwhelmed and exhausted, he'll retort with, well, you went to yoga today. What's the issue? And the experience, though, is, yeah, she's at yoga. And in yoga class, she has 1,000 things on her mental to-do list.
I think that's why it's the unseen piece that's so key,
yes.
Right? The yoga is seen. Okay, cool. You went to yoga. You should be good. It's the mental checklist that just continues. And
yeah, I always hear the other side of this conversation because I never want to discount one person's experience in this. And a lot of men in my community will say, well, I have a mental load too.
That's true.
I'm thinking about when am I changing the tires? When do I cut the grass? If I'm thinking those typical comments that I receive, or, even I know some men will say like, I'm worrying about financials a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think my partner gets that. I don't think she sees that if I'm thinking of the heterosexual relationship. So it is really, and let's even step back one more, because in our relationship, it wasn't just me experiencing resentment at times. You too also felt that way.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that. The mental load gets, for fairly good reasons, over-dimensioned that it's the female. And often it is. Like, I don't want to discount that, but I'm glad you mentioned it because I think there is a flip side to that coin. And not every male-female relationship has the same dynamic. To your point, it could be totally the opposite. And I know I feel that sometimes as someone who has taken on more of some of the domestic roles in the last few years. There's an element of that too. Or, to your point, finance is huge, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens that way. So it does go both ways, and resentment can show up for both partners, whatever the sex is.
Yeah.
So I think I'm glad you said that.
It's almost this experience where I want to validate one person's experience, but in doing so, I don't want to invalidate someone else's.
Yeah.
And that's also not to say that if I'm validating one person's experience, and this is the core of our relationships. If I validate you, it doesn't mean I'm wrong and that my experience doesn't matter. I think this is where a lot of people who comment on my posts in that defensive position of, is she changing the car tires? When's the last time she mowed the lawn? By the way, I learned to mow the lawn, right? Like it's from this place of, yes, this experience is real, and it doesn't discount your experience.
Yeah, I think that's like a level that a lot of people can't get to, particularly when their brains are like short circuited watching some like viral clip on their phone when they're just in this headspace. But it's a good point. I mean, it's the self-other piece that you've talked about, and I think that's a harder place to get for some folks.
You and I talked about this on the podcast before, the negative sentiment override.
Yes.
And how in some ways resentment builds all of these small negative moments.
Right.
That dictates how you feel with your partner.
Yeah, it creates a narrative, and then these small things feed the narrative. They feed the beast. And then what happens is, I know the Gottmans have talked a lot about this, is like anything therefore that happens after it is kind of filtered through this negative lens. And listen, I've been guilty of that for sure, and will again in the future. I think it's normal. I think when you kind of like can take a step back and go, oh shit, that is a thing. I think I mentioned we've talked about narratives recently. This is something that really landed with me, and I think it's tied to this. It's like we pigeonhole our partner. We kind of like we have them figured out, we think, often in a negative sense.
Yeah, right. One of my early ones used to be, you don't help. And it would, especially when you were working on the weekends and I was with the kids. And by the way, if anyone can hear it, we've got a sick kid at home with a cough, and hope the background's not picking up. But it's that was one of my negative narratives over and over again. And it would completely discount that you had prepared the dinner before you left for work, that you took our little guy to the park while I was doing nap time with our second. I couldn't see any of that because all that I would get stuck in is, you don't help.
Well, yeah, but you were probably picking up these little signals along the way that were just feeding, like you're in this feedback loop that was just like perpetuating that feeling.
Yeah.
I think that's normal, but I think when we can kind of like take a step back and see what it is, and no, it really does contribute to resentment in a big way and perpetuates it. I think that's it.
I think the other thing too, and I've talked about it on the podcast with Matthew Frey as one of the guests, is the micro betrayals or the micro moments. And I know I've said to you before how these things can feel like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that's why it's so important that we don't just minimize that one experience, but instead we talk about like what does this really mean for you? What's really happening for you?
Yeah,
but like just holding that like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
I mean, that's a powerful analogy. It landed with me for sure because you said it to me, frankly.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not injuring you.
Yeah. I think it speaks to one of the antidotes to it, which is like, how do you show up with curiosity?
Yeah. I'm holding a lot of, knowing when this episode is coming out and thinking about where people are sharing their experiences with me right now, that moving into the summer season, this can start to feel really tricky in your relationship because this is a season of change coming up.
I look forward to hearing how this shows up, because I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, hang on, it's about to get easier with summer, right? Holidays, better weather. It's got to be easier, right?
Sure. I mean, right now it feels easier in some ways, but what we experience, also what I know from many of my clients that are sharing this right now, is that they are not only continuing the camp process that so many people started back in, I've heard from people saying November, but in January to sign up for camps, that now it's like, okay, wait, hang on. Where are they going this week? What do they have to do? And each week for many people is a new form to fill out before going, a new set of instructions of what you have to pack in the bag. And that is just like this whole mix up and loss of routine really does add an extra layer.
Yeah. It's like you have all new transitions each week.
Totally.
Instead of in September one time for school.
Totally. And I remember last year as we were moving through the summer, I remember just how many people were saying to us that they felt like roommates, that they're like, I'm going into the summer feeling like a roommate with my partner. Like we're just not connecting on that intimate piece, and we're feeling distant, we're feeling resentful.
Do you think it's because of this like logistical stuff? Is there something else to it?
Yeah, I think there's both pieces in there. The logistics definitely pulls us away from deepening, right? It's almost like it's going like outwards rather than down.
Yeah, it's
and intimacy,
breadth, not depth.
Yeah, intimacy is depth.
Yeah.
It's the slowing down in moments. It's the how are we connecting and seeing each other? How do we spend time knowing what it's like to be the other person? And even as the season's changing, I can feel it with us already starting. How I had to say to the other day, hey, I need 10 bags of soil. Like, when are you gonna get the soil? And my mind has thought about soil so many times in the last few weeks of like, gotta get the soil. It's not just about the soil. It's now about getting the garden ready, planting the tomatoes that I know my daughter and I love to pick together, right? Do you see all the things that it's like? And so I think that just alone takes away from any free space in my mind to then come and connect with you.
So what can folks do?
Yeah, I mean, like the first thing I think about is our roommate challenge that's starting again. And this is
set up.
this is something that we've just really come to love in our community.
100%.
It takes place every other month.
Yeah.
Where everybody comes in together, we start together. It's 10 days. Each day there's 3 exercises that you can do.
Yeah.
Those exercises are grounded in the foundationals of what it means to build a healthy relationship. And that's around, well, the three things you get each day in the email. It's 1 email a day. I designed it for even the busiest couple. And in the email, you can either do a mindset shift, you can do a communication skill, or there's something that you can really take action. And it meets everybody at the different levels that they're at.
That's right.
Yeah. Some people join because they say, we're in a rut. It's been 2 years since we've had sex. I don't even know where to start. Yeah. And I take all the guesswork out of that. Here, this is where we're starting. Some people say we're preparing for this time together. I'd like to feel closer. Like, it's just really cool to see people come in.
Yeah, the feedback's amazing. I think what's cool about it too, it's 10 days. There's lots of products out there, including we have one too that's like 30, which is a little bit softer. But this is it's a very specific time that I think you can see the change in. It's not too drawn out, like in and out. Like, that speaks to a lot of people. And I think the kind of support, the community kind of like support and accountability piece, because we kind of do it in cohorts. So we're in essence all doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
So then there's the community group. You're kind of in there like helping people through. I think that's what's really cool and separates it. And then just the dialogue and the communication that comes back and forth with it, so people aren't feeling like they're doing it alone.
Yeah, that's the one piece. We know that we change better when we're connected and in community. And also, there's something magical about 10 days. We can all commit to 10 days. It's not going to fall off. You've got the email coming in. If something happens, you park it, you come back to it. Yeah. But we see most people go through it, and that's pretty cool. And then I also know a lot of people send me an email later and say, we went through it again.
Yeah, we had to go back to it.
And that's pretty cool.
So that starts the 28th of May.
Yes, the 20th of May. I'll put the link in the show notes. But I think the other piece too is, let's talk about some of the things we've been putting into our relationship, because I think that is like, we're human too, and we are navigating the summer schedules, and even having our little one home today just throws me for a loop in terms of like, okay, how do we get all these things done?
Yeah, I think that's important because we talk a lot about it. I'm privileged enough to like hang out with you on some of these podcasts, and like authentically we're kind of doing the same stuff that we talk about.
Yeah,
like it's not just this top down like you should do this.
Yeah,
it's like we're often, many times, literally doing the same thing.
Yeah. So something you and I have been doing is our more daily check-in. So in the morning, we wake up before the kids and we have coffee. And sometimes you're already in work mode. Sometimes I'm in a book mode, and I'm like,
books. Yeah. Books. Reading's healthy.
Reading is healthy.
However.
Yeah. I think that is just this finding some way in whatever your day looks like that you can just pause for a moment. And it doesn't have to be, I think the thing too that we do as in our relationships is we make it to be such this big gesture, this big idea. It's something so small. If you have a lunch break, put a reminder on your phone to go off every day at 12:05. That reminder goes off, and that's when you send a text to your partner. Say, hey, I was thinking about you. How's your day? Right? You've built in a system.
Yeah.
You've built in a way to check in with them and to open up the door of communication. And then whatever they share with you, that's kind of that moment of connection that you can have. So that's something that you and I were trying to be really good about in terms of doing it in the morning. I think the other thing that doesn't require you and I to have a schedule or to make sure that we're doing it is just our sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, in this sense, everyone's different, but we try to, be light with each other and joke about things, even if they're like legitimate gripes. It's like, It's kind of like how we approach it. We're choosing to be a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Now, I think for some people listening, that might be a little bit harder to do if you're in a more difficult season. So do you have any advice for those people?
Yeah. When I think about how resentment simmers for people, it really is is joking going to feel good?
Yeah.
What's
like, is it going to land?
I mean, it may or may not,
Yeah.
But if resentment is one of those feelings that's really simmering right now for you, I would say find more of the physical tasks that you can do side by side.
Mm.
I think that's a really great way to connect with someone when we forget doing that. Find a shared project. Is it about completing the house thing that has been outstanding for a while? Is it doing the gardens together? Is it about going for a walk with the dog? It's just something to be beside each other. And then the use of humor. Here's the thing. It can't attack your partner's most inner fears and wounds.
Right.
Like if you come to me in like that, like funny kind of way and be like, oh, haha, like, are you being sensitive today? Like sensitive is like a wound.
Right.
And that doesn't feel good. Right. Like there are other ways that we can rib each other.
Yeah. There's an element of caution, I guess.
Yeah. And in some ways too, as I say that, something that I think lands a bit easier is almost the self-deprecating humor.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when I can say like, oh, am I making that face at you again? Like it's about me, not about you.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Something we've also been good at doing recently is calling each other out and checking in on each other. But the key to that is not taking it personally.
Yes. And that's a skill. That's hard.
Yeah. But I also think it speaks to this layer of resentment, though, because sometimes it's the what's going on for you. I want to know what's going on for you. But if I feel this sense of distance, then I'm going to go into my stories.
Yeah. Your negative sentiment override.
Right.
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 Your narrative.
Into my narrative. I'm going to listen to that versus. I also want to back up a little bit. I just want to come back to resentment as being almost like this window. And it's an opportunity to look through it to see what's happening if we are willing to do that.
For your partner or for yourself?
Both.
Okay.
So here's the other thing is that sometimes people have a big emotional reaction to hearing their partner say, I resent you because da 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 da. Yep.
Sure.
Ouch. Like that hurts, right?
It's a big word. Yeah.
So here's kind of like a flaw with that is it's putting the feeling on the other person. So that's first. Like that's the way we're communicating that. And a healthier, more assertive, all of the communication tools wrapped into it would sound more like I feel resentment because, and attaching it to what's happening, attaching it maybe to behaviors, but attaching it to also what's happening inside of you. I'm feeling resentful because we're having all of these moments in our relationship where I'm feeling unseen. And the story that I'm telling myself is, you don't think of me, you don't see me.
So is the key there to tie it back to your feelings?
Yeah. And
what's happening for you? It's kind of that external.
I resent you because of what you did.
It's like the bad apology all over again.
All over, right? Where, yes, and I get that because that's what we do with our feelings. We put them out to the other person because they're the ones who've triggered it. They've triggered something inside of you. They're just a mirror. You're holding up a mirror of something that's inside of me. I have to be willing to look at that. And so sometimes then the partner who hears that, red flags go off. Oh no, what's happening in our relationship? I'm a bad person. I did something wrong. All these things. When actually it's like, oh no, hang on. Let's not personalize it. Because when we personalize something, we immediately lose connection to the other person.
I can imagine that's really hard in the moment though.
Oh, of course. That takes a lot of self-regulation.
Yeah.
Which is always the, hey, just take a pause. Your partner has just shared something with you. You want them to share things with you.
Okay.
How you respond in that moment is going to then choose the next moment. It'll facilitate the next moment. So if you're...
flush that out.
How you respond in that moment will either facilitate or hinder the next moment.
So if I'm the male partner on kind of getting this feedback, my instinct is to be like, oh, like this... No, like my ego.
Yeah, you get defensive. You want to protect yourself. Yeah.
But how I respond impacts the next moment.
Yes. If you respond defensively and say, well, I didn't mean to, it wasn't about all the like dismissing, deflecting.
Hard as hell in the moment to think that, to like have that forward thinking though.
Right. And so self-awareness and self-reflection is a muscle. These are things that we have to practice and flex.
Right.
And we can do it with ourselves. We can do it with ourselves in the way of, oh, I'm having this emotion. Oh, I'm feeling resentful. Okay, slow down. What's happening right here? What's the story that I'm telling myself? What's the trigger for me in this moment? What's underneath this for me? What do I need? And sometimes it ends right there to start.
Right.
Because it's the internal work. rather than what we do. And I know I did this early on. I did this with you in our early days. We met.
Tell me more.
We met, and I was this young 22-year-old, right? My brain wasn't done developing when we met. Yours was. What was your excuse? I'm just kidding. So we all have a muscle to flex and to practice, and we can all get there, but we have to find the ways to do that.
I would think the people on the more anxious end would struggle more with that. Is that fair?
Yeah. How so? What makes you think that?
I don't know. Like, they're probably more apt to be like flooded. So if you're getting that feedback about how your partner's feeling, like, wow, for me to like slow down, create space, think of, try and give that space so the next moments are
right,
not necessarily positive, but allow us to move forward. That's hard.
This isn't about your lovability. This isn't about breaking the relationship. This is about a process that can help deepen your connection. And that is the work of when we do feel more anxious, to sit in this idea of all of this is information. Now, how can I be curious with my partner to understand them? And in many podcasts and teachings, I've talked about the bridge. And if you could even use that analogy, it's like, okay, I'm so anxious, but my job is to cross the bridge to my partner's experience. Okay, I can carry, it's a both end. I'm going to carry my anxious feelings. My anxious feelings make sense because of my history, because of the things I've experienced, because of how tough of a place we're in right now. I'm going to walk across the bridge. I'm going to go across the bridge and be in their experience. Their experience is real, and I feel anxious. I can understand their experience, and I can still have a hard time with it.
Makes sense.
With at both ends.
So then what about the partner who's avoidant, who's getting that feedback? Like, thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Next.
Right. So this is the question around, so the person who's avoidant does that not because they don't want to know you, but because it is inherently uncomfortable in that moment. Like that's part of their coping mechanism. It's not their personality. It's not a flaw. It's just how they've learned to cope with it.
Of course.
So what does the avoidant person then, the person who leans into avoidance, needs to stay with them? It's the same thing. You're going to carry this is a really hard experience. I would rather just curl up into a ball and say, it's fine. Everything, we don't need to address this. We're good. You have to walk across the bridge.
Yeah.
And that's the choice.
I would imagine, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but a lot of those people, and I know this from personal experience, is like at some point we need to see these interactions really as the opportunity for connection versus the feeling like you're on the receiving end of blame or resentment.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And
to also view it as us having a different experience doesn't mean we need to blame each other. It's okay to have different experiences of something.
In a way, it's good. It's like, do you want to just be a mirror of your partner? Not necessarily.
There's one other thing that I've been doing to tackle my own feelings of resentment, and it is about acknowledging when I'm doing too much and taking that personal responsibility for it. So the other night, I said it out loud to you. I said, I need to go sit down. I'm feeling resentful. I sprained my ankle a week and a half ago. It's not fully healed. I had already walked, and then I started cleaning the chairs, and you're like, I got this. And I was like, I know, I'll just keep going. And so I'm scrubbing the chair, and I can feel it inside of me. The stories, for me, it's the stories.
Walls could feel it. Like vibrating.
Sure. But that was my personal responsibility to say, this doesn't have to be done in this way. I can let this go right now and then move into doing what I need. Like, I had to fill my cup up.
Yeah. How does finding time for kind of oneself play into this? Like, I would imagine like you need to foster your own identity as a way to kind of hedge against some of this resentment. I would imagine that's part of it. I
can remember in those early postpartum days, I would wait for you to give me time to step away, to look after myself. And I think one of the hardest things that everybody has to come to is that no one's going to give you that time, and you have to make that time for yourself. And you then started to call me the shower ninja, because you'd be like, are you going to shower? And I would say, I already did. And you started to call me that because you're like, I didn't even know you slipped away. Yeah. So I would start finding these moments to look after myself. So I think carving that time out for ourselves is a personal responsibility. Like we have to do it. And at the same time, then we have to communicate that to our partners.
Yeah, it's both, right?
It's both,
Yeah.
of course. All right. If you are feeling resentment in your relationship, I think it's so important for you to be able to name it, that this is not a negative red flag thing in your relationship, but instead it's a window, it's an opportunity for you to look at and to be curious about and to ask yourself, what need is not being met? What's this feeling underneath here? And what is it that I need moving forward?
Yeah, I think the window analogy is really, really neat. That's a good way to look at it. Because I would almost think it's like I'm trying to block something, but but you saying that, you're like flipping it on its head, like it's a way to
it's a possibility
and understand the possibility.
Right. And with that, then, if I'm willing to look through the window, I'm also not dismissing the mug. I'm not dismissing that small thing that seems so insignificant to you, but you then looking through the window and saying, tell me more about what's happening here. What am I missing? What do I not fully understand? How can we then move forward through that?
That's right.
All right. I want to hear from people. Are you feeling resentful right now? How are you feeling in this transition season? I'd love for you to pop into my DMs on Instagram. I see all my messages. We're in there. I'm in there. Send me a message. Let me know. Did something stand out from today in terms of resentment and what you're going to do moving forward? Can you relate to the mug experience of, I can't believe he just left that there?
I know. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you can work through some of these things and look through that window and get curious, and hopefully it'll elicit some conversations with their partner. Next time they put the mug down, it might just be the mug on the counter.
Yeah, it might be. Or maybe you don't put the mug on the counter.
Okay. Mug's got to go somewhere.
All right. If you're looking for more support, jump into the show notes. I've got links in there for you. Join our roommate challenge. It starts on May 28th. I would love to have you there. You can also send me a question. That's on my website. Go to drtracyd.com/podcast. I love getting your questions here. It's one of the things that totally fills us up in terms of the conversations that we're having. And don't forget to subscribe and review the podcast. That helps people find the podcast, which I don't know if you know, but that's actually what bumps it forward for people to find it, which I thought was pretty cool when I discovered that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. All right. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. I have to remind you at the end of every podcast episode that this is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for the care from a licensed mental health care provider. See you next time.